Yes.
Hello and welcome. This is Joe and Hilda here from Headcoach.
Hi.
Now, we've been discussing and we've agreed that we're going to do a series of short videos round about explaining about counselling and mental health. So, counselling, what types of counselling, what they are, how they operate, and also look at some common mental health issues such as anxiety, depression. So we hope that you find these useful and informative. So today with the first one, we're going to look at online therapy or online counselling. So if we could just start with that. So if I just say that to you, online therapy, Hilda, what comes up for you?
Well, there are different things come up. There are different kinds of online counselling. So I would need to find out a bit more about that if I was going for counselling. But always as well, there's the thought of, well, somebody's just a picture on the computer, and is it effective in the same way that face-to-face counselling is? So those are the kind of things that I would think about.
Yeah. Well, I suppose when I think about online counselling or online therapy, what comes up for me is yes, that there are different types. So I've heard of email counselling even, which I don't even know how that works. I've not really looked into that. But for me, it's more about being on a computer with someone, so facing you, so like FaceTime, if you like, or uh, and that's usually done through. There's a few platforms. Zoom is one,
Yeah.
Google Meet is the other, and I'm sure there's a couple more. But
And another one that people use, I think, is WhatsApp.
WhatsApp,
Yeah.
so there you go. I didn't even know you could. Well, yeah, of course you can FaceTime through WhatsApp. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. And all of those are encrypted, those ones,
Yeah, yeah. And
so
I
that they
think
are confidential.
looking at the rise of that, I think a lot of it stems from the pandemic.
Yeah,
When we were told to stay indoors and not to meet anybody, I think that's when the rise of that started. I
yeah,
suppose, you were mentioning there about, would we get the same connection? I thought about that as well. Would I get that therapeutic connection with someone? Uh, and actually, I found it to be excellent for that. I don't
Mm.
find any
I
different.
I found it. I found it odd to begin with.
Hmm.
But once I get used to it, it was absolutely fine.
Yeah,
And I really don't notice much of a difference between doing therapy by Zoom or therapy in the room,
yeah,
room or Zoom,
yeah. Rumor Zoom.
room
Oh,
or
yeah,
Zoom.
and I think the phrase that's going about now is in person, meaning face to face in a room.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, I would agree with you. I find online therapy or by Zoom or whatever just as equally as effective. Uh,
yeah. People tend to forget that they're talking to a face on a computer.
hmm,
They connect. And I don't think I've had anybody that hasn't connected the way I would expect them to
yeah,
connect
and I would say the same.
in a room person to person situation. And I haven't had anybody say to me, "Oh no, I really can't do that."
Yeah.
And maybe that's because the people that do come online are happy to come online, and the people that are not happy to come online seek out somebody that's still doing person to person
Yes.
in room stuff. And so maybe we don't get the people that it's not going to work for.
Well, no, and I mean, obviously now all we do is online therapy, so it shows you that the effectiveness of it. Uh, at the beginning, again, I think I was worried about how you would do it. So, you can have like a quite a large screen with a desktop computer, a laptop, but I've had people do it with tablets,
Yeah,
telephones.
yeah,
And I find it again, even only seeing part of them, if you just, you're just seeing their face even, but face tells you so much anyway. Uh,
yeah.
and I have not found any difference.
And I think one of the things that people find useful is they don't have to travel anywhere.
It's a great one.
And I've had people that have had an appointment and they've stopped in a lay-by to actually have the conversation and then got on their way again, just really because that was convenient for them. And if they had made an in-person appointment, they wouldn't have been able to keep the appointment.
No. And again, even I've worked with people who left their office and went and sat in the car
Yes.
and had that session. And again, it's good for that and it's very convenient for them. But it does certainly save them a lot of time,
Mm.
traveling to an
There's the
appointment.
documentation as well, that I thought might be quite difficult, but you can send somebody a thought record, for instance, as an attachment to an email.
Yes.
You can actually get them to complete their forms online or print them off and send them to you if that's what they prefer to do.
Hmm.
And so that didn't prove as difficult as I thought it would when I started off doing the online stuff.
Yes. And again, you could get a verbal agreement with someone from that, so they could read the forms and give you a verbal agreement, help to save the planet, I suppose, as well, because
Yeah,
we don't have as much paperwork there.
yeah. And
Uh,
one of the things that we did, Joe, was remember with a company, we actually got them to um, just reply to the email saying that they agree
yes.
to the attachment that was on the
Yeah.
email, which
Yeah,
which
to
was
terms and
great.
conditions or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Or even
So
like a little contract that you may have with a client.
that's right. There's no need to actually have it
Hmm.
signed with pen and ink, so to speak. But it does, once you're used to it, it makes it easier all round.
Well, certainly, I think. And what about the the bit of it of confidentiality? And people ask me about that often. Uh, obviously things are confidential. Do you think it's as confidential online?
Well, I think when you're using the platforms, the official recognised platforms like Zoom, like Google Meet or WhatsApp, they are all encrypted.
Hmm. So I
And I
think
think there's
that's
even an advert out just now on the television for WhatsApp
right.
telling you that they can't even get into um the not the emails but the messages.
Hmm.
So they're actually telling you on the television that it's completely confidential.
Okay. And that certainly is a good thing, isn't it? Certainly for people would be worried about
Yeah.
that encryption and it being out there, or somehow it's not as confidential. So that's certainly another benefit, I think, for a client.
In some ways, I think for some people, it will be more confidential.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about my in-person practice when it was there. We had a number of celebrities
Hmm.
that came for counselling, and they were viewed coming into the building,
Right.
not where they were going in the building, but people saw them coming into the building.
Hmm.
And I thought that was a shame for these people because there wasn't anything we could do about it. They entered the building, there weren't many companies in the building. So there was, people assumed
Yeah.
that they were coming for counselling. And that's a shame. I mean, obviously, we
Well, I think,
never
yes,
ever
certainly that
confirmed or
privacy.
denied it. Sorry, Joe.
I'm thinking that privacy is a big thing for people.
Yeah, whereas now they can go on their phone,
Mhm.
or they can Zoom, or they can Google Meet, or they can WhatsApp, or whatever, FaceTime even. And they could sit in the toilet and do it if that's what they wanted to do. It doesn't really matter. It
Oh,
doesn't matter to us. Um, so I think from that perspective, it might be a little more confidential.
mhm. So I suppose
People don't.
what we're both saying here then is that we think it's a very good thing. It's certainly beneficial to clients,
Yeah,
saves a lot of time. From our perspective, we feel it's very just as effective. So
yeah,
I think all in all, then it's one of these things. It's a win-win situation all round.
yeah. I mean, people.
And
There are
would we have
some.
ever done it?
Sorry,
I'm saying, would we have ever done it if the pandemic hadn't come along?
I don't think
Probably
so.
not. No.
Although I was looking at online counselling for um, another company that I worked for,
Okay.
but there was no push to do it because we didn't really need it at that point.
No.
But the one thing I would say that drives me nuts about online anything is you've got to have a good internet connection.
I suppose that was one of the things that was worrying me, certainly at the beginning,
Uh-huh.
was losing the connection,
Uh-huh.
uh, and you know, spoiling the session, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Funny enough, I've never really had it happen to me.
Yeah, I have had that, and it hasn't spoiled the relationship
No.
at all.
I suppose one of the things I thought about was, and I always do, is I make sure I've got an up-to-date telephone number for them, for a
Yes,
client, so that if it was to go down, I can phone them straight away
yes,
and still keep that connection and carry on.
yes. And some people will say, yes, it's great to carry on the telephone because telephone counselling
Well, yeah,
is
and we will look at that
we're going to
in
talk
another
about that
video.
as well.
Yeah.
So it's just about moving from one medium to another.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
I've never had anybody that said, "Oh, the connection is so bad," either on their end or my end,
yeah.
that they couldn't continue.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
It's
yeah,
actually
I
quite
would
fun.
say that's the only downside, but it's overcomable.
Uh-huh. And it's actually quite funny you should say that because thinking about it, I have a client at the moment who's abroad and it works perfectly as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, although,
Sometimes with these people, it feels as if they're almost in the next room.
well, yeah, but I suppose that, there is always that option if you're doing, I mean, this person happens to be in the USA, so it's that bit of transatlantic. There is always a possibility of it going down, but it's not happened yet. So,
Yes, and also the other thing is about the time difference.
yes. Well, I suppose, but again, I suppose that just gives you that option then that you can actually do that.
Yeah,
You can work out a time difference and you can still engage in that
and
therapy.
that's what we do. We are saying, well, what time is it in your country, and
Yeah,
we're trying to work out a time that we could work that's sensible for us as
yeah,
well,
as
and
well.
sensible
So,
for
so yeah,
them. And the USA is very doable.
of course, yeah. So again, that's the bit of it. So any final thoughts on it before we finish up?
Well, I would say it's going to go more and more and more and more therapy online.
Online. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, because and certainly with certain companies as well, that it's easier to recruit therapists if
Yeah.
it's online because they don't need to be local.
Hmm.
And I think that was a big problem for people not having a choice of therapists locally just because they were rural or they were,
Yeah.
um,
Well,
yeah,
that was always the thing if you think back. when we were starting out years
When
ago.
we set up the company, yeah.
Yeah, but it was always a very local, you needed therapists who were local. That was the thing about it. And now it can be
Yeah, and
ridiculous.
all your people will had to be local as well.
Whereas
You
now,
could have different
as you
cultures,
say, a
but they
different
all
country.
had to live locally.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yes, this has opened up a whole new world for people
Yeah,
that they can have.
certainly. And for us as well.
Yeah, yeah. And
Well,
it's been interesting.
yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah,
Okay,
it is
folks.
interesting to talk about different therapies. So thanks, Joe.
No, thank you, Hilda. Okay,
And
folks, well, thank you for watching this. I hope that you found it useful and informative. And we'll see you again on the next one.
drop us a wee like at the bottom.
Yeah, please, if you don't mind. Bye bye.
We always forget that, Joe, don't we?